Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Figure this is as good a time and place as any to share these. I've got 3x stories of weird shit I've seen, plenty more too. But these are the most interesting. 13, maybe 14, chilling in the leaf pile at my grandparents' house. About 8 o'clock at night, only one outside, only light is coming from the kitchen window 30 meters away, and another one from the barn 4 times that distance. Night noises go from normal to gone in the span of 3 seconds. I think it's weird, but I'm not really worried. Look over the top of the house just in time to see this massive orange oval fly over the top of the trees. Probably twice the size of the house, literally just above the trees. Doesn't seem like it's 3-dimensional or has any volume at all. Flies west beyond my line of sight. All of this in the span of maybe 20 seconds. No odors, no trails or exhaust, nothing. Continue laying in the leaf pile, terrified that it will come back if I move. Wait there for maybe 15 minutes. Sprint around to the front door and inside. Still have no clue what it was. Still freaks me out to think about. 14 or 15. Dad used to walk around the neighborhood at night. Said it was part of his routine for his diabetes, but he was so inconsistent with it that it hardly mattered. The neighborhood is small, and you can walk from one end to the other pretty quickly. Sometimes I go with him, decided to go with him this time. Maybe 10 o'clock at night. We headed down the street to the mailbox. See this small red light kind of swaying irregularly off in the distance. Weird, but whatever. Dad doesn't notice despite me pointing it out to him. We climb the hill next to the mailboxes that lead out of the neighborhood. Start to hear screaming. Absolutely non-human screaming. Not just once, it keeps going. The red light was still swaying somewhere behind the house. Dad still doesn't notice. Screaming stops after an hour when we're heading in. The light is still swaying. Spooked me pretty bad at the time because I thought it was a banshee and I was worried I was screwed in a few days. 14 or 15. Summer break between freshman and sophomore year. Stayed up late all the time, saw and heard a bunch of weird shit, but nothing big. Went to bed at around 4 o'clock in the morning one of the last nights of the summer. Sleep on the top bunk, brother has the bottom. Having trouble falling asleep, rolling around. Hear really light footsteps running down the hall, kind of like a cat trotting or something. No pets at the time. Footsteps come back up the hall. Pretty scared at this point. Footsteps stop in front of my room. The door is open. It's freeze, completely stone cold still. Primal fear that I haven't felt since. Not sleep paralysis, I can move, but I don't. See this circle shadow cast on the ceiling by my brother's nightlight. Just this little circle with some kind of loose, wavy, triangular piece attached. Can't see anything other than this shadow. Slowly moves to the foot of my bead, where the head of my brother's bed is. Convinced that it'll figure out I'm up there and come for me if I even so much as flex my pinky. It stops once it gets to right next to where my brother's head would be. Stays there for about a second. Slowly moves back out. I hear the footsteps running toward my sister's room. Every spring and part of her bed frame creak at once. Sounds like somebody tossed 50 pounds of weight on it all at once. Stay completely frozen until Dad wakes up to go to work 2 hours later. It couldn't have been my sister. We did experiments with shadows later, and whatever that was wasn't touching the ground. I had heard the footsteps before, but that shadow never came back. Or if it did, I didn't see it.
A story of a friend. Befriend. Have 2 uncles. Let's call them Sam and Mike. They live in the countryside with their grandma. One day, Sam comes home from work sooner. No idea if Mike is home, knows grandma's at the doctor. Remember about this cat which is missing. Goes to the door of Mike's room and asks, "Remember the black cat? What happened to it?" "I don't know, she's gone for good," says the voice of Mike, whatever.jpg. A day passes. Sam meets Mike at the local bar and asks him why he didn't ask him to go with him. "I just came from work." "Wait, you weren't home when I asked you about the cat?" Both are confused. Go back home and check Mike's room. Empty. What bothered my friend's entire family is that the voice sounded exactly like his uncle. Did not get the chance to ask him about other spooky stuff at his country house.
I don't know that this is exactly spooky, but it is strange. When I was about 16, I had a month-long period of intense, inexplicable paranoia. There were no drugs involved, and I have never been diagnosed or treated for any mental illness. Plus, I've never experienced anything like it since, almost 20 years ago. I had this constant feeling of being watched, as in spied on. Not from government agents or gang stalking or spooky ghosts or anything in particular, to be honest. Just something or someone. I got nervous when alone, even in public or when a family member was asleep in an adjacent room. I would peek through the window from behind blinds to look for anything suspicious. I was afraid to mention it to anyone, as I was sure they'd think I was delusional. And I would say that I may have been delusional if not for two odd events that occurred, one observed by me and one by a third party. Be me, 16. Late summer or fall, maybe September or early October. About 6 p.m., asked to take the trash out to a can on the back deck. The deck faces the backyard, bordered by acres and acres of woods with marshland behind that. Put the trash in the bin and stand on the deck looking toward the woods. Hear what sounds like radio chatter coming from different parts of the brush, as if 3 to 5 different people were talking over the walkie-talkies. Can't make out what they're saying except copy and over at the ends of sentences. Clearly here, he's listening in the middle of a jumble of words. The radios are so loud that they kind of echo. Freaked out, went back inside. I have literally never told anyone about this until now, because it seems ridiculous. The radio sounds were so loud that if what I heard was real, they must have known I would hear it. I don't know what to make of it. The other event is a bit more concrete and was observed by someone else. Earlier in the year, maybe April, at home with my mom, probably screwing around online or playing PS2. My brother-in-law drops by, says he is here to pick up something my mom had for my sister. Mom gets the item and gives it to him. As he is leaving, he asks whether we saw the 2 men that pulled up. Neither of us have any idea what he's talking about. He says he saw 2 men in suits get out of a car parked in the road in front of our house and start walking toward our front door just as he was pulling up. Says when they saw him, they immediately turned around, got back in the car, and left. A couple of years ago, I thought maybe I had dreamt the whole thing up, and I asked him about it. He relayed the same story and said it was very strange how they did an about-turn the second they saw his truck. A very strange time in my life. I was very anxious around the windows and mirrors. Just as strange is that it all disappeared almost overnight. The anxiety just went away one random day and never came back.
My uncle told me and my mom a story a few months ago that made me question reality. Be my uncle. Sometime around the 80s, his grandfather, my great-grandpa, was still alive. In the middle of a trip to Italy, no contact with the rest of the family back in the States. My uncle loves Italy. He speaks the language and has been there 1,000,000 times. We have family in the north. Gets back to his room one night and goes to sleep. Begins having an incredibly vivid dream of the airport. My great-grandpa is there and greets him. My uncle starts crying in the dream and doesn't know why. Great-grandpa hugs him tightly before turning and walking towards the terminal. My uncle tries to follow him but can't. Something is blocking him. Great-grandpa tells him, "Where I'm going, you can't follow." Great-grandpa gets on a plane and leaves. My uncle wakes up. When he got back to the US, my great-grandpa was dead. Apparently, he died the same night my uncle had that dream. I never met my great-grandfather, but when my uncle told the story, it made my mom cry. I've always sort of believed in the supernatural, but that story confirms it to me that there is life after death.
I believe you, Anon. I think our militaries and governments do weird shit sometimes. Have a sort of similar story from my girlfriend. This is also my real first Greentext story, despite lurking here since 2010-ish, so bear with me. This is sometime between 2011 to 2013. My girlfriend and I believe a total of 4 other people were hanging out after dark. Her family has this big-ass farmhouse type of place that sits more or less in the middle of woods and has a couple smaller cabins surrounding the property, pretty comfy. They're drinking when someone or something throws either a large branch or a rock at them, multiple times. TF. They start shouting and telling whatever it is to fuck off when suddenly they hear running and movement in the trees and brush. If I'm remembering correctly, I think my girlfriend said they were outside the entire time, and at one point they see or hear something running towards one of the smaller cabins in question. Her and one of the others man up and go investigate. Wet footprints enter the cabin and just vanish, and nothing is in there. Stick rock throwing turns into what she described as bird calling. Whoever was screwing with them was more than one person, and they were signaling each other with a series of whistles. I believe she said one of the dudes there was able to see one running into the mountain woods and took off after him. This guy was a relatively fit crackhead type of guy too, so he was fast. Couldn't even keep pace with whatever or whoever this was. No clue what that was all about, and it never happened again. Could have just been some locals screwing around, but they were apparently incredibly fast and organized and could enter a one-room cabin and just poof. Not there anymore. There's also a part I'm leaving out where some green laser pointers were involved, but I forget where in the story it occurred. Girlfriend said at one point they were seeing lasers being pointed at them. I have several stories from her now that I mention it. Her family's property is apparently weird. She gets home from work one night, just like any other night ever. Again, this house is pretty much in the middle of the woods with a mountain right behind it, so wildlife is expected. One night she's pulling in the driveway, and what she describes as a deer that is crawling on the ground like a spider scuttles in front of the car and up the mountain. She was absolutely certain it was your run-of-the-mill whitetail buck antlers and everything. Like this was unmistakably a deer, but its legs were all messed up and bent like bugs, and it was crawling on them super quickly. Separate occasion. Her and her BF at the time were approaching her house from the car. About a 50-yard spooky walk in the dark with woods surrounding you to do so, but they've done it many times. She says at one point this enormous black mass creeps in front of their view as they're walking. She says it's absolutely hulking. She's bad at estimations, but I'm assuming it's bigger than your average man. She's 5'10" and said it was just huge. It almost completely silently passes in front of them and goes into the woods. They somehow witnessed this in silence until after the fact, and they confirmed that both of them saw and heard the same thing. She said despite the size, it was still snapping twigs and such, so whatever it was in fact something physical. However, she said the size versus the amount of noise it was making and how quickly it was moving made no sense at all. We have our own place now, but her family is still around and live in the same spot. Almost want to camp out sometime and see what happens. Another one from her. I have more of these than I thought. Her and the same crew from my first post are at some old abandoned house for no reason at all. It's after dark, obviously. This place is out of the way, but not all by itself or anything. Pretty sure there were other houses within 100 yards or so. Anyway, they're all creeping on various parts of the property. She is approaching the house from the front, about to turn the corner and walk along the side of the house. Before she is able to turn the corner, they all hear an absolutely blood-curdling scream. Can't remember if she said it sounded to be animal or human in origin. Just a loud, goddamn awful scream. Naturally, they noped. She said it came from the side of the house she was about to walk up on and was very clearly outside rather than inside, and it sounded like it came from about shoulder height. Everyone noped, so no one was able to identify. Folks have given her the screech owl explanation before, but she said it was shoulder heightish in origin just based on how it sounded. I guess he could have been sitting in a window or something. Who knows? No one had eyes on that side of the house, so don't know if there were windows or not. One more that's dumb, but hey, who knows? Fit crackhead guy from first post is in a woods somewhere near her parents' house hunting. There's a creek that runs through said woods where he's at. This man swears that at one point he's minding his goddamn business when he hears a very loud industrial noise from the creek. He hits the dirt because WTF says that some type of door in the creek bed opened up and some type of UFO hovered out and took off into the sky. Probably bullshit, but an interesting thought.
Not really a spooky story or anything, but my mom, who has never mentioned any other paranormal stuff at all, is convinced my late great-grandma, who died before I was born, was a 100% honest-to-God witch. Be my mom, age 11 or something. 1970s. I plan a slumber party with some friends from school at my great-grandma's. She had a large house slightly outside of town and lived alone. Mom and 3 other girls at my grandma's. It's already late 9 or 10 p.m., just before bedtime, already dark out. Just chilling in the living room, talking about girl stuff, their insecurities, etc. One girl has a bunch of warts on her hands, apparently had them since birth, is really insecure about it, and complains to my mom and friends. Great-grandma enters the room, hears the discussion, asks the wart girl, "You want me to make the warts go away?" Girl, unsure but hopeful, "Sure, yes, please." Great-grandma takes the girl out on the balcony. Mom and friends follow because they are curious. Bright moonlit night outside. Great-grandma takes Wart girl's hands on her own. No fancy ceremony, no witchy potions, no occult language or spells, just holds Wart girl's hands up into the moonlight and says, "Be gone." Nothing happens. Great-grandma just smiles, ruffles the girl's hair, says to Wart girl, Mom and friends, "Okay, you kids can go to sleep now." They go to sleep. The next morning, the warts are gone. No scars, no marks, not a trace. Just perfectly normal skin, as if she never had warts in the first place. Ex-Wart girl is happy. Mom and friends are astonished. Thank great-grandma and go home don't realize how goddamn strange this is because they're 11-year-old girls. Never ask great-grandma about it because kids have other things on their mind. Great-grandma passed away a few years later when my mom was 14 or something. Well, that's it really. Don't have any other stories except a casual, "Yeah, your great-grandma was always kinda strange," with no further commentary from my grandma when I asked her about this story my mom told me.
Cousin's friend used to stay with him regularly when he was young because bad home life aunt used to look after him. Cousin's friend dies when he's about 40 in 2010 but still keeps in touch with cousin and aunt. Aunt dies around 8 years later. Cemetery is huge and goes down there from time to time because most of my family is buried there. It's laid out a bit weird because it's not like all new graves are next to each other. A lot of people have had plots for decades and married couples often get buried in the same grave. Because of this, my family are dotted in different parts of the cemetery, even if they've died recently. Sometimes I see my cousin's friend's wife there visiting cousin's friend. Knew cousin's friend and knew his wife. I'm basically the only one who ever goes down there from my family. One day I saw my cousin's friend's wife and she seemed a bit off. Ask her what's up. Says someone has taken one of the little angel ornaments off her husband's grave. Hasn't been vandalized or nothing, it's just that one thing missing. Tell her I'll keep an eye out for it. Visit graves. Get to aunt's. There's a little angel ornament on it. Take it to the cousin's friend's wife and ask her if it's the missing one. She says it is. Ask where it was. Tell her. I didn't put it there. I know no one else visits, and she's the only one who visits her husband's. It's obvious she didn't put it there because she was the one who told me it was missing. Offer her it back. Tell me to put it back on aunt's instead because someone wanted it there. She seems happy. Put it back on aunt's. I never found out how it ended up there. It's still on though.
Do you think it could be another family member?
Nah, no one goes down there other than me and sometimes my sister. She's not, nor is anyone in my family, the type to take something from someone else's grave. It's crass. My cousin, aunt's son and friend who aunt would look after, does occasionally, but at the time it happened he was out of town so it couldn't have been him either. Like I say though, regardless, no one in the family would take something from another grave.
I had a weird experience when I was 6 or 7. Get bus with mother and brother often because no car. Brother is 6 years older and we couldn't be more different. He's very roguish and uncontrollable while I'm the opposite. That being said, he's still my older brother and therefore a role model and someone I emulate, or try to. Has this habit of sitting inside of the luggage rack, particularly if there aren't any seats. Pick is the closest I can find. It's that opening under the stairs. Obviously not allowed in there because it's for luggage. Gets told off every time he does it, but he doesn't care. I got on the bus this one morning with my mother and without brother. Awful day, cold, raining, dull, typical British weather. No seats, the bus is packed, and I have to stand. Only being young and therefore short, everyone's damp coats are pressing against my cute little face. Feels horrible. Screw this, I'm going to chat it up in the luggage rack. Climb in the luggage rack. This is a mistake. Severely claustrophobic and already lots of wet bags in there. If anything, this is more uncomfortable. People start throwing more bags in, and now I feel like I can't get out. Stuck in the corner behind the driver's seat. Get this sensation like I'm falling, and there's a light behind me. Grab onto what I can to stop falling. Looking over my shoulder, hard to describe this part. It's like I'm looking down on a nice, sunny, bustling town, but no one there can see me. Realize I'm not falling. It's more like I'm being sucked into a hole and into this sunny, inviting town. Next thing I know, someone has held my arm and pulled me from the luggage rack. It's the bus driver. Bus has stopped. My mother is crying because she couldn't find me. Everyone is staring at me like when Kevin McAllister messes up the kitchen in Home Alone. Get told off by both the bus driver and my mother. Were looking for me for a good 15 minutes. Couldn't have been in the luggage rack for more than a minute or two.
Be me. living in a campus town in Iowa for the summer. There's a nice bike path by my apartment that leads past a golf course to a small patch of woods. Start regularly taking walks to a nice spot by the river that runs through the town. Enjoy the birds chirping and the river passing by. One day I decided to walk through that area at night because screw it. See what was either a squirrel, chipmunk, or mouse. It's been completely smashed apart. Grew up in Michigan, heard stories of wolves at night and said screw that. Feel like I'm being watched the whole way back. A few days go by, nothing weird. Up to now, I've really only wandered around the east side of the woods, deciding I want to check out the west side. Walk parallel to the river. Start to hear faint music. In the distance, I see what looks like a hut someone's made. Don't want to mess with rural homeless, those dudes are nasty. For some context, I had had one bad encounter in a different part of this town in the woods, where some homeless dudes crashed a party my friend was having. Didn't threaten us, but definitely felt like they would have tried to rob us if we didn't give them booze. As I turn to leave, I hear something big rustling in the brush near me, about 20 or 30 feet off. Hustle back. I can hear more rustling along the riverbank as I walk away like it's following me. Don't see anything though. Go home that day. Don't think too much on it. A week goes by. I continue to chill at my spot on the east side of the woods. One day, I turn the bend I usually do to get to my spot. There's a guy just chilling there, smoking a cig. Nothing wrong with him, seems relatively well kept. T-shirt and basketball shorts. In spite of this, my fight or flight response is on overdrive. My body is screaming for me to GTFO. Something about the way he's looking at me is off, like he's sizing me up. Realize I don't have my knife on hand. Shit. Like a dumbass, act like I'm dealing with a wild animal and bluff at being calm. Put my hand in my pocket like I'm holding something, and slowly back away until I break line of sight. Hustle back home. Never go there again. Laugh it off after a while. I figure I'm just a coward and got scared of literally just another dude hanging out in the woods. A few months later, news story that a girl was stabbed like 100 times on the golf course next to my apartment. Killer stuffed her body in her golf bag and chucked it in a pond. See the mugshot. It's him. He's some kind of sociopath who's been living in the woods for months. Apparently, he had told some friends that he was trying to kill someone, ideally a woman, months ago. My face when literally the look he gave me was debating whether he wanted to kill me or wait for a woman. Yeah, screw any woods in Iowa. They're filled with psycho homeless people.
Not really a scary story, but I've always wanted to get this off my chest. Be Paperboy forever ago. Work a long route that throw papers to Air Force Base. This includes a 15-minute drive through back road cornfields. The area is now developed and has a proper road. I'm a patriot, so won't name specific plane names, but the terrain of this place near water gives a lot of overcast. The Air Force has a trick. They like to fly in strange-looking planes and drones on overcast nights. I'm probably one of the only civvy to notice these planes in this era. They never fly with lights so hard to see. These planes are huge, highly modified from what you see on the wiki page. They can fly very slowly, but I've seen them land half a dozen times. One day, about to start the cornfield drive of my route, see the huge modified plane fly across me about a mile ahead. Very low, very slow. Reach about the halfway point in cornfield drive. I was listening to Coast AM at the time. It was good back then. Radio cuts out to static. All of a sudden, the cornfield road is illuminated like it's daytime. I think something like, "Are the Air Force people messing with me?" I stop my car and see the plane fly by above me. It's like 300 feet off the ground at most. It's amazingly silent. It's shining some ultra-light beams on the road. Wow, they were totally screwing with me. They turn off the light. Radio turns back on. I watch the plane fly up into the overcast. Get back onto my route.
Not scary, but it spooked me. Pick is just to save me explaining the main layout. Get in touch with an old friend I haven't seen for a year or so. We're 19-ish, and she's just got a new flat with her son, who is like 6 months old. Invites me over, shows me around. Has this massive canvas on her bedroom wall opposite the door that's 5 by 5 feet of some flowers. Tells me that sometimes she wakes up and it's hanging upside down. Gives me that look like she wants to know if I think she's cracking up. Shows me a spooky cupboard in the hallway. Nothing in it, except an old electric fire. Doesn't seem in keeping with the modern aesthetic. Rented the place off some guy, and the fire was his mother's, who lived here before the girl did until she died there. Told her she can throw it away if she wants, though. Ask why she hasn't thrown it away. Says she's scared to in case the old woman haunts her. Night goes on and nothing happens. She goes for a smoke out back. Hope Babby doesn't start crying because I don't know what to do. Baby crying on baby monitor. Get up to go check because I'm just winging it. Baby is sound asleep. Turn to leave and this toy thing starts playing on its own. Go back to the living room and the baby isn't crying on the monitor. Girl comes back. Baby starts crying. She goes to see to him. Before she leaves, the room can clearly hear someone shushing him. It's probably just picking up someone else's signal. Hear girl talking to him once she enters, and there definitely didn't seem any cross signal. He seems fine. Little later, and it's time for bed. Go full Sean Penn in I Am Sam and blow my big chance. I ended up sleeping on the sofa. Wake up at 3 a.m. Room is pitch black. Feel terrified. See white ball of light just hovering in the hallway through the ajar door. Gets bigger and moves towards the front door. Suddenly, darkness. Lie awake until 6 a.m. when the girl gets up to tend to the baby. Make excuses and leave. Walk past her bedroom. Double back. Canvas is hanging upside down. Never go there again.
Good story. Very spooky, my ESL friend. What country did this happen?
TFW, not even ESL. I had to omit words to fit it inside of 2,000 characters. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have spelled baby the meme way, and that would have kept it below 2,000 and saved me from looking ESL. We live and learn. I'm glad you like it anyway. It's in the UK. The whole area where her flat was, she doesn't live there anymore, is spooky on its own, just because of the age of everything. Probably 90% of the properties were built between 1820 and 1825. It feels like you're in a Dickens tale when you walk through the place at night.
Not my story. Young dude back in the 80s, 10 or 11 years old, lives in a town like on Stranger Things. Between some of the houses is a wood, and behind it is a big house, bigger than the other houses in the area. While the rest have 2 floors, this one has 3 and looks really gothic. They know people live in it, but no one ever sees them. Becomes a bit of a local legend with lots of speculation about it. One day a young dude is playing alone in the woods and gets the feeling someone is watching him. Spoops and goes home. Always feels like someone is watching either from the house or from the woods themselves. Stays away for a few days and then goes back. Hears someone tell him you don't have to leave. Turns around and there's a girl there a few years older than him. Has a raggedy uncombed mop top and ill-fitting clothes. Turns out she lives in the house and is homeschooled. They become friends. He asks her questions about the house because everyone is curious about it. Tells him she has the whole 3rd floor to herself while her parents live on the other 2 floors. Never invites him inside. But he never invites her to his house either. His parents think it's cute he's made a new friend, and his sister says he has a crush on her. He says he probably did have a crush on her because she was showing him attention and asking about his life, which no one else ever did. Although he didn't find her attractive. She teaches him how to smoke, he pushes her on a swing and stuff. They have fun, not that kind. Always meets her in the woods. Then one day she's just not there and he doesn't see her again. 6 months or so later, the spoopy house is up for sale. Begs his mom to take a look at it because it's an open house. She agrees. They go and lots of people are there because it's not just the kids who are curious about the place. They speak with the owner of the house and introduce themselves, and the owner says she recognizes the young dude. Young dude gets creeped out. She shows them around the house, but only the bottom 2 floors. But he knows there's a 3rd floor and you can even see the windows of it from the woods. Woman mentions that she had a daughter who died some years before. Young dude can see the resemblance between her and the girl he's been hanging out with. Tells his sister about it. She says he was in love with a ghost. He doesn't believe that, but doesn't have a better explanation. Goes back to the woods. Looks up at the house and sees the girl's mom staring at him from the window. Not smiling, not waving, just glaring at him. Gets creeped out and leaves. Anyway, the house is sold and that's that. His parents get divorced a couple of years later and he moves from the area. Years later, he's married and at a family gathering back in his childhood town. His sister brings up the ghost girl. He tells the whole story. Him, his wife, and sister decide to go there. Walk the same, now overgrown trail, gets to the dilapidated swing he used to push her on. Goes to the same place the cigarettes were hidden and the old pack is still hidden there. All get spooked and leave. Little while later, he's sick and having fever dreams. Has this dream that he's young and back in the woods and can hear laughter. Walks the trail to find a ghost girl sitting on a bench and laughing at him. She pulls her hair off and keeps laughing at him like some maniac. Wakes up totally terrified. Realizes that the girl all those years ago wasn't a ghost. It was the girl's mom LARPing as her dead daughter. It explained why she had such weird hair, why her clothes didn't fit, how her mom recognized him during the open house tour, and how they looked so similar. Gets asked how he could mistake a grown woman for a girl a few years older than he was at the time. But kids who are 10 and 11 years old aren't exactly the smartest kids around and are easily duped. Believes she really did have a dead daughter, but she LARPed as her as a kind of cope.
This reminds me of a personal story. June 2008. Night fishing with my dad on a pier with a hotel on it. Pretty calm night. Waves low. Not a lot happening on the island. Moon fairly bright. Time rolls around to 2 a.m. Suddenly I hear a steam whistle out in the distance. Low droning whistle, almost sounds strained. Ask my dad if he can hear it too, and he can. Drones on for a while before it fades away. Thought it was either a locomotive or came from the oil refineries. Remember that the only nearby steam locomotives are literal museum pieces and the refineries fully switched to electronic alarms. Recount how back in 1900 the big damn storm flooded a train trying to make its way out the island and killed everyone inside. Local story is that you can hear the trains whistle in the dead of night, but only when another huge storm will hit soon. Fast forward to September of that year. Hurricane Ike hits and messes up the island. Hotel that was on that pier ruined beyond repair and eventually demolished. Both the 1900 storm and Hurricane Ike hit in early September. Had dozens of night fishing trips in the years since. Never heard the whistle again. I should go night fishing again the next time the weather guys predict a chaotic hurricane season.
Mushishi asked this same question, but does the train actually predict the storms, or does it cause them? If it took a similar time frame on both occasions for the storm to hit, how do we know that the storm isn't just the cargo the train is bringing like a PMMM witch?
I feel like if a single spectral train had the power to manifest and call hurricanes to its location, it'd be like a minor deity-class organism. So the more likely answer is that it just senses them.
True, but the passengers may be just trying to go back home, and the storm that killed them is on board the train with them now. It would make it the same as most spectral trains, but it just somehow has a storm attached to it. The whistle so far away from the date the storm hits might be the conductor's warning to people on land.
Anon, who posted the story here. The only subsequent years that a hurricane or tropical storm made landfall at that area were Harvey, 2017, and Nicholas, 2021. On neither year did I take a fishing trip that lasted as late as 2 a.m., so I can't confirm if it sounded off ever since my encounter. I can get the idea that it sounds off the warning months in advance to warn people on land because the original storm of 1900 took everyone then by complete surprise. Last thing I'll add is that both the storm of 1900 and Hurricane Ike were Category 4 hurricanes. Harvey made its second landfall as a tropical storm while Nicholas was a Category 1. It will take a lot to make the train depart again.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.